Naj, thank you so much for joining me. It is such a pleasure. I've been looking at some of your videos on attachment style. We're both in the same field, and I just love that so many people are out there bringing awareness to this topic, and it makes understanding the people around us so much easier. I am going to ask you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, my name is Naj. I'm a therapist, an MFT. I've been working as a licensed therapist for about 8 years now. I didn't start out working in relationships and attachment. I think I just ended up here because it's so important to me on a personal level. And as I started talking more about my journey and how I've finally succeeded at being in a relationship, I think people related to it. And now this is something I do both professionally and personally.
Yeah. Were you like me, where it was like, I think what happened was I finally realized that I was so self-righteous and arrogant, thinking that I thought I knew the textbook. I was perfect in my relationships. I thought I could communicate well, and I'm reading all the self-help books. And then one day I was like, wait a second, these relationships aren't all failing because of them.
Hmm.
Was it a thing like that for you, or what was your journey in the whole healing?
I have a couple of profound relationships that still failed, and when I really looked deeply into what went wrong, I was left, I think maybe similar to you, left with one like neon bright answer, which was you need to do some work around the way you show up. So, ironically, that even though I do lean heavily avoidant, I would say that I was physically and maybe even emotionally quite present, but there's still ways in which they would say you don't feel like you're actually here. And it's like, well, what are you talking about? I do this for you and I do that for you and I'm here and I do that. But at the end of the relationships, as I looked back on all of them, I would say that I didn't ask for what I needed almost ever. I didn't set boundaries almost ever. So, a classic example is I'm with someone who maybe doesn't, their car is broken down or they don't have a car at the moment. So I would drive them around everywhere. And I would never ask them to, like, hey, can you just Uber today? Because I'm exhausted. Or it was a little codependence. And in my head, and I think part of being raised in the world I was raised in, love means saying yes. Showing up as a man means saying yes. But my nature was inherently avoidant. So this partner was going nuts, I think, feeling this person who would show up and then leave, even again, physically present, but somehow finding ways to disappear on them. And then eventually at the end of it, leaving for good, because I would just feel like I've done everything. This still isn't working. You're still not happy. And the one thing I never actually did clearly in my head define what I wanted, how I wanted this to look, and how you could make me happy. And once I started doing that, everything changed.
What was the fear holding you back from speaking up?
Uh, I would say the fear was that people don't really want to do things for me. I would be a burden. It's not how a relationship works that you sort of, oh, you just get what you get and you try to be happy. And that if someone cares about you and loves you, they'll work to be attuned to you.
I think that's something that I find with the avoidant attached as well. It's like, you know, you guys generally don't ask your partner to change or do anything that will make you happy. You tend to just look
Mm-hmm.
at how things are and you get into your heads and try to work with that instead of speaking up.
Yeah.
Were you, let's use the story, the scenario about the car. Is it possible, this is your story, I'm just asking you to share, is it possible that you thought if I spoke up, this person may leave me or they may get angry?
No, in that instance, no. um, it was never about being left. It was in those situations, I was never going to be left. They were never going to get angry. It was more like I could handle it. I could handle the stress. I can handle the pressure. I can handle the exhaustion. So I should do it and not put that on somebody else. So there's a self-sacrificial part of this where giving instead of taking is just this mentality. But how do I put it? It was never about being left. It was always about, I didn't even know that that is something that bothered me or that I needed until it was far too late. I would sort of push away the resentment, push away the annoyance, um, in a way that was not good for me, but did maintain homeostasis in the relationship. There's a lot of idiosyncrasies to these relationships that we're glossing over, but in general, I would say this person, like, what could they do? They didn't have a car at the moment, right? So, like, why in my head, and this, I think, gets back to the like pure avoidance nature is what's talking about it going to actually do? You can't fix it. There's nothing you can do. So I should just keep it to myself because at the end of the day, just doing the thing is going to maintain homeostasis. Telling you I'm annoyed or resentful or hurt or exhausted doesn't change the situation anyway.
But that's an assumption, right?
Big time.
It's
Yeah.
an assumption because being in, spending so many years as an anxious attached, I just wanted to know. And what I find is that as an anxious attached, and I think I could speak for many persons with anxious attachment, we're very good at adapting. We can change so quickly because we so want to belong and be chosen and be a part
Mm-hmm.
of. So
Mm-hmm.
we're good at hearing what's going on. I mean, we're great gift givers for a reason. We study people and know exactly what
Yeah.
they want because we want to be chosen by them. And
Yeah.
so to communicate those feelings, to say, look, I'm overwhelmed, and I need some space, I believe that an anxious attached person will be able to give that space. And a lot of times they don't even ask questions like to try to understand it. It's like, okay, this is what this person needs. And then the fear of if I don't give it to them, they're going to leave me. So I
Yeah.
give it to them. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think we get into a really important um, area of a lot of assumptions being made because there is a chance, a high probability, that your anxious partner can handle whatever you tell them. But there are also going to be moments where they're in their own distress and they can't handle it. And the avoidant is going to remember the moments where they were overwhelmed and distressed. And that's the characterization of that person is going to imprint on their head because that fits their conception of relationships is that there's no space for you and what you're going through. And so I know I can think back and say, that's how I saw these people. I didn't
Yeah.
see them as their stable versions of themselves. I saw them as the enduring part of them was actually quite anxious, overwhelmed. And so I didn't want to add to that. But like you're saying, those are all assumptions. They probably, could have handled it. And in fact, I know they could have handled it.
Yeah. So you were talking about the self-sacrificing side of you with the
Mm,
car incident, for
hmm.
example.
Sure.
What what do you feel the benefit would have been in self-sacrificing? What were you getting in return? Because we're not going to sacrifice ourselves unless we're getting something we believe to be a little bigger in return.
Yeah, and again, this is a inner a thought that I think a lot of the avoidance I work with have, which is that to maintain homeostasis, I have to not have needs, and I have to give, there's so many people in relationships that I work with right now who, when they come to sessions, say, "I do so much for my partner," and they don't see what I do, and they ask for more. And as we break it down, they actually their partner has no idea how much they're doing behind the scenes.
Yes.
Like I didn't eat the last whatever, and because I was thinking of them, and the partner's like, I didn't know you did that for me, right? And the partner's like, when are you going to actually prioritize me? And the avoidant partner's like, I prioritize you constantly. I just don't talk about it. I don't tell you what I'm going through. When you're doing not enough for me, I don't ever say anything. And so the avoidant person's backing away all the time because they feel overwhelmed, not cared about. The anxious person's confused, just so confused. Why do you feel this way? Why don't you just communicate it to me?
Yeah, I think that's something that, I mean, helped me to become a little bit more secure, trying, understanding what happens in the mind of an avoidant attached partner, because that's the person that I'm generally
Yeah.
attracted to. Just recognizing the little things, like even when he's super tired, but knows
Hmm.
that I want to go out for ice cream, for
Hmm.
example.
Hmm.
I would know he's tired, but he's like, yeah, let's go do it. And yeah, just knowing that so many responsibilities are on this person's shoulder, and they're in their head trying to manage everything to show up for their partner. Because I think what a lot of people don't recognize as well is that the avoidant attached depends on their partner heavily for that stability, emotional
Yeah. Sure.
stability.
Yeah. I want to ask you about that, about your attunement to your avoidant partner and being able to know, thinking about what must be going on for them. Uh, you're talking about sort of reading their mind a little bit, and some people don't want to do that. They should be able to tell me. Why don't they just communicate? Why don't they just do this? Then it would be easier. And I find that dialogue to be not constructive for a relationship, because as you're describing, yeah, that would be nice, sure. But maybe love means knowing my partner exists this way in their mind and body, and reading into it, knowing them better. So you must have turned a corner uh, in your understanding of relationship to take that on. I'd love to know more about that.
Well, it was years of trying to make someone do what I wanted them to do because I
Mm-hmm.
believed that that would make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not trying to understand them and their psychology and their trauma and how that created this person who had a very difficult time communicating. I did not understand so many things, like when an avoidant attached person tells you something, they're hoping that you don't use it against them. And using it against them doesn't necessarily mean throwing it in their face when there's a disagreement. It can also mean, don't talk about, hey, you remember that time when you told me about this thing? It means never talking about it again. And they've trusted you to be a safe space and hold that. And with an anxious attached, just as an avoidant attached, we're very good at knowing exactly what's going to hurt the other person. And as that person, I would, throw it back in your face.
Mm-hmm.
And of
Mm-hmm.
course, that breaks down the trust, and the avoidant attached person becomes even quieter. But yeah, it was, recognizing that I had to see the person for who they were.
Yeah.
Recognize that in certain cases, they're afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of showing me or telling me I love you, but they show it in their
Mm-hmm.
actions. And just appreciating that they're not me and I'm not them. We just
Yeah.
operate from a different place, but it doesn't mean that I wasn't loved.
Yes.
And that created like the shift came from empathizing, from really learning about the attachment styles,
Mm-hmm.
and empathizing with the other person and making a decision. Can I accept this? I had no
Mm-hmm.
choice with respecting. There is no choice. I have to respect this person, whether
Yes.
I like it or not. But can I accept this?
Yep.
And looking at my partner and just focusing on the things that we're just happy doing. I think I shared this with you in a conversation earlier. It's a very playful, fun relationship where both people respect each other. And, I know for sure if you spend too much time together, it's time for space. And being in a more secure, attached space, I need space as well. So it actually works. But yeah, appreciating what's going on in his life,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what's happening in his life, knowing what his career is, what his job is, what his plans are, the extended
Yeah.
family, the need for him to be with his friends, and encourage that, allows me to appreciate him and enjoy him.